Hi, this is Rafael Solorzano from Baja Legal Advice. This time I would like to discuss expiring and expired fideicomisos. Um, I want to be as short as possible, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary to be detailed in my explanations. As you know, the fideicomiso program started in 1973. The first fideicomisos were for 30 years. Um, so the first fideicomisos were bound to expire by 2003, but the government of Mexico uh, allowed the fideicomisos to be given for more time, in this case for 50 years, and that began around 98 or 97. But those fideicomisos would not be renewed automatically. They would not be extended automatically. Okay, so those folks that had fideicomisos from, say, 1973 and were informed 24 years later, say around 1997, that the fideicomisos would be extended to 50 years upon requesting the renewal. They knew that they still had like a year or two to get done with this. But those fideicomisos that were created, say, around 1996, 1993, and that were probably 4 years old and were for 30 years, they were eventually renewed not long ago, 30 years after 1994, would actually be around 2024. Okay, so those folks should have renewed those fideicomisos 6 months before. All the permits, that is, when you create a fideicomiso, you find this condominium, or you buy this land, or you buy this home. Okay, your attorney approaches, you hire an attorney or the real estate agent or your closer, whoever, approaches a bank, and the bank is retained to hold the deed of the property in your behalf, okay, for initially 30 years. But those that eventually purchased property after 1997, they all got 50-year fideicomisos, except the people that purchased an existing a property on an existing fideicomiso, which means that they didn't legally, technically buy a fideicomiso. They actually took over an existing fideicomiso, which is legally and technically an assignment of trust rights. Okay, so they took over someone else's existing fideicomiso, so they should have, or their closer should have looked at the date in which the seller created the initial fideicomiso. And let's say that it was 1992, okay, and they bought in 2006. So, and you you deduct the time, and you had fideicomisos that still had 20 some years to go. So they didn't actually renew them; they just continued on. So, what I'm suggesting here is that you look at your fideicomiso, particularly those that purchased property and took over an existing fideicomiso, to make sure what is the deadline on your fideicomiso. You might say, well, what is the purpose of getting, all stressed out? I'll take care of that if and when we sell. But the thing is that when you want to sell property and your fideicomiso, the term has expired, you cannot sell the property because your term has expired. Let's understand this. The fideicomiso does not ever expire. It's the term given for you to enjoy the fideicomiso, the term allowed by the government for the bank to hold the deed in your behalf. Okay, so it doesn't take long. Get someone who's Spanish speaking and knows a bit about legal terminology, or talk to an attorney or talk to the notario and ask them, when does my fideicomiso expire? Again, if you just recently or over the past 20 some years created the fideicomiso yourself, and you're the first trust owner, you didn't buy from someone else, you bought, unless you bought from a Mexican or the developer, you created the fideicomiso through the bank. Okay, so if you bought it 2007, okay, you know that you had it for 18 years and you still have 32 years left. So this is not an issue for you, but those folks that actually created a fideicomiso in the 90s, okay, or in the early 2000s, we're in 2025. Okay, you still, if you created one in 2000, you have 25 years to go. Not a problem again. But this is more for those that to over someone's existing fideicomiso. The permit has a term. When you retain the services of a bank, the bank applies in your behalf to the federal government to get a permit to create a fideicomiso for 50 years today, okay? Those that have 50-year fideicomisos have no issues. Again, this began back in 97 or 98, therefore you still have lots of time. But if you are you sure that you actually bought from someone else and you took over an existing fideicomiso, chances are that your fideicomiso is expiring sometime soon or it's already expired. Now, this is where it gets messy. How do I renew a fideicomiso? And look for my article on Baja Legal Advice. And eventually I may upload this on YouTube, but I still need to get some issues out of the way because I'm having issues with the light and background and all that. But again, going back to fideicomiso, I said this is where it gets messy. If your fideicomiso eventually it is concluded that the term has expired, you have a problem. You would say, well, what does it take to get it renewed? For one, you cannot renew an expired fideicomiso. So, okay, what is the solution? Obviously, you go through the bank. The bank will not do this for you, so you go to someone like me who knows the ins and outs of all of this. So you ask Rafael, since you have confirmed that my fideicomiso has expired, what is next to do? Well, I approached the bank in your behalf with a letter of instructions and informed them that the fideicomiso has, the term has expired. So we request an extension, not a renewal, an extension. And an extension is given for 20 years. I can check again, but it's probably around $1,300 or so. An extension of 20 years. You would say, why simply not get another 50 years? Good question. The problem is that you cannot get a fresh new 50 years if your fideicomiso is expired. So the government forces you to get an extension for 20 years. So, okay, you tell the bank, here's the money, go and get me the extension for 20 years. Okay, so now what I do? Now you can renew the extended fideicomiso for 50 years. Okay, so don't assume that since you already had the extension of 20 years and you had the 50 years, that you now have 70 years. It doesn't work like that. What they'll do is that they will check the date on which your term has expired. Let's say that expired last year, okay? And so the extent that is the renewal applies for the date, the day, and the month that it expired, not on the date that it's been issued, like today, but if it was, say, September 9, 2024, well, your new term applies from that day, not from the date that it was issued, but from the date it actually expired. Consider that it's already extended. Confusing? Yeah, it is confusing. I just don't understand why the government simply doesn't give you a fresh new term for 50 years. Well, probably it's a stupid thing to say, but they want the money that you will pay them for the extension. No, regardless, you have to either you stay with the 20 years. Some folks have, and they said, well, forget about it. I'm not giving them another $1,300. I have an extension. I'm good with the extension for 20 years. Besides, I'm 78. I might not be around in 20 years from now, so chances are me or my widow will eventually transfer this or get it. There's a lot of topics that roll around us. But if you have questions, and I know it's confusing, but I felt that this was not something that I could just get through with in 2 minutes. Check your fideicomiso. More so if you bought a property from someone, an American or an expat from whatever country. If you took over someone's existing fideicomiso, make sure that you confirm what is the deadline for you to get the fideicomiso renewed before it expires. When must you renew? Based on the permit. The permit always specifies that you have to at least request a renewal within the 6 months before the expiration date. Okay, but if it's expired, we cannot renew the term of an expired fideicomiso. We have to get it extended in order to get it renewed, and that costs money, not just a permit. Figure this: you pay the bank a fee, okay? You pay a notary a fee. You have to get an appraisal, no lien certificates, the HOA certificates, just as if you were selling. You would say, but I'm just renewing. They don't care. The government doesn't make sense, nor the law makes any differences. You will have to pay regardless. And well, good luck if you want to do this on your own. This is what I do, and I've done for the past 30-some years now. So I've cut out the guesswork because I've done this multiple times. So I'm available for a fee if you have an issue and wish to consult your situation, and I can review your fideicomiso. But again, if you created a fideicomiso, you bought a condominium, and you were the first owner, and that fideicomiso, the term was 50 years, you have lots of time. But if you took someone else's existing fideicomiso, you took, it was an assignment of trust rights. You took over someone else's existing fideicomiso. Make sure that what is the date that it expires. Okay, it didn't start the day that you bought it. It started the day that the seller or the seller from that sold to your seller or the one before that. When did that start? When was the first fideicomiso? Okay, does it make sense? It doesn't? Well, contact me. I'll make it clear for you. Thank you again. Check me out on Baja Legal Advice on Facebook. You can check the few videos I have on my YouTube channel. My email is rafaelsolorzano@gmail.com. And I'll put up my phones and everything else. And again, I give 30 minutes free consultations. 30 minutes. No, it doesn't include review of paperwork. If you have me review your paperwork, I'll get your paperwork by email, and I'll send you a quote based on my rate. I will not discuss a rate here online. But again, don't take anything for granted. Make sure that you have things under control. Oh, by the way, before I forget, this is August 2025. Keep in mind that September is the month of the will, of the testamento. Okay, the will. And the notarios all over Mexico reduce their fees by 50%. So if you need a will, go see your notary public. It doesn't cost a lot. At least say Rosarito costs like 5,000 pesos or less. Okay, it may be more or less depending where you live. But just to make sure that I don't generate confusion, if you have a fideicomiso, you do not need a will to protect the assets. Why? Because the fideicomiso has a estate planning clause to avoid probate. But if you create a will and you put the property in the will, you will force probate, and that costs quite a bit of money, and it takes a long time. So use the will only for belongings and a car, jewelry. If you have a bank account, you already have a estate planning clause there, okay? You already assigned someone to be your beneficiary and all that. No problem. So I could go on and on, but I don't want to create more confusion. I'll put up another video today on a different topic, but probably next time I'll be a little shorter. There's always room for questions. Again, let me know if you have any issues, any questions, or if this was too confusing. I'll try to do a better job next time. Bye now.